If you were the insurance wizard for a day and you could wave the magic wand, what's one thing you'd change about the insurance industry?
We don't need to spend more money in health. We have to figure out how do we take what has happened inside of healthcare today and reinvest that into the people we're all here to serve.
I love that. So thank you. Great answer.
Thanks.
And if I had the wizard hat and wand, I'd give it to you right
give
now.
Give me a wizard hat.
I can. We can make that happen. Amazon right now. Welcome to Money Market, a Bank of Tampa podcast. We highlight the businesses, business expert advice, the local economy, and points of interest in the Tampa Bay market. Follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you find your podcast. And make sure you like, follow, subscribe, and share this episode with a friend or your colleague. I am your host, Owen LaFave, the Pinellas County Market President for the Bank of Tampa, Tampa Bay's oldest, largest community bank. Today's guest is Philip Lee, the West Florida Market President for Florida Blue, one of the state's leading health insurers and part of the Blue Cross Blue Shield family. With more than 2 decades of experience in healthcare, Phil oversees Florida Blue's strategic operations, business development, and community initiatives across the state. A passionate advocate of affordable and equitable healthcare, he's a guy I know who's not afraid to challenge the status quo with a smile on his face. Phil Lee, welcome to Money Market.
Thank you, Owen. Thanks for having me. Yeah.
So, the question that I have is insurance is not the sexiest industry. And, I say all the time that bankers typically just kind of fall into banking, and then we find ourselves, 5-10 years later, and we're like, I guess I'm a banker.
Yeah.
How did you find yourself in healthcare?
Every child of the 80s doesn't grow up watching Sesame Street, just dreaming to be a healthcare executive.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, right.
So it really started in my childhood. My mother retired, but she's a nurse. Then went into hospital administration, running oncology hospitals in St. Louis, Missouri. So at a very young age, I've always been exposed to the healthcare environment. And I remember, probably, 4 or 5, 6 years old going into the cancer unit with my mom and, at that time bringing ice chips to individuals and their families who were getting chemotherapy or warm blankets. Continued to peak and spark an interest. And just grew that. And, led me to, when I was in school, was pre-med biology, chemistry, going to med school. Always wanted to be a doctor. That was like my biggest dream, was to be in the clinical practice of medicine. And, through school and in different business courses, I had a really good just mentor and coach. And when you're 20, 21 years old, you're not sure like what the path or where it will lead you. And, he challenged me, think about the business of healthcare. And I said, yeah, of course, my mother's in hospital administration, would be a great career path, to go work in different departments, kind of learn the inner workings of a hospital. And he said, think about the payer side of what we do. And had no clue at, what that meant or, what he was alluding to. But it led me to the pathway of health insurance. And, to your comment about bankers, I never thought I'd, work for, an organization or a company, maybe more than 4 or 5 years. And I'm almost 19 years at Florida Blue and couldn't be happier or more excited about the work we're doing. So it's been a good journey.
I hear you. And I don't know, we've never talked about this, but I too had wanted to be a doctor my entire life until I got to college. And then it was a function. It wasn't the coursework. It was just kind of doing the math. And I don't know why it took me so long to realize it, but I'm like, I'm going to be 30 before I have a real job. Not acceptable. Like I need to do something else. So.
Yeah. Same, 30, a lot of student debt.
Or all that too.
Kind of start to work through. So, but it was good. It led me to where I'm at today.
So what was your path of leadership at Florida Blue?
So coming into Florida Blue, it's, I'm very sales oriented. We're in the people business. So I was living in Dallas, Texas, working for a competitor in national accounts. My wife and I, we had some personal ties to get to the state of Florida. And I, at the time thought I could do group sales and group insurance from anywhere. It landed me to Jacksonville, Florida, which is where our corporate office is. And, spent the better part of a decade inside our sales organization, working with businesses at all levels from mid-employer groups all the way up into national accounts. So very large customers, helping with their health and welfare strategies. Did that for about a decade. And then in 2018 had a great opportunity to move into the chief of staff role for Pat Garrity. Pat's our president and CEO, a dynamic leader, an individual, we didn't have that role in our organization until Pat joined the company. By his design, it's rotational. So you come in, report directly to him alongside our executive team and with our board, and just a master class in leadership development. And came out of that, had opportunities to lead other parts of our organization, ultimately landed me here in Tampa about a year ago.
Now, how long is that kind of tour of duty?
Yeah, so it's about a 2.5 rotation. 2018, you think about where we were, here and as a country and as a world, starting of a global pandemic. So a lot of work, not just in the business and business strategy, but kind of at the end of that was a lot of work in COVID response. Crazy time. Really proud of, the work of our team, our organization, the many partners. If you think about the early days of COVID when, we're just trying to PPE and, what does the world look like and how do we understand it? What data is out there?
How do we pull everything? Yeah,
how do we triage? How do you pull resources together? And Florida, a lot of challenges, but you saw, this communities across the state really coming together to provide first line response to individuals and families in need. So, but yeah, it's about a 2.5 year rotation, and it was a really, really just great opportunity to come from the sales organization, relationship, client management, independent contributor, but then to be able to work and operate in a lot of different aspects of our business.
Now, just curious from a developmental standpoint, and in I guess to the best of your knowledge, has anybody kind of done that rotation and then kind of flamed out?
There really hasn't been anybody flamed out. Yeah, I mean, all of the. So there's been a few chief of staffs now under Pat's leadership. They're all in very senior roles inside of our organization, and by design. I mean, I love our company. I love the work that we're doing, the impact that we're making. Again, I never thought I'd work for an organization for more than probably 4 or 5 years, and kind of test different areas or move around. But to be here almost 19 years and to have that same energy, and I know my colleagues who've done that rotation feel the same way.
Well, I mean, a great testament to not only the company for developing you and keeping you engaged enough and interested enough, and then your performance as well. So congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
So. I guess for those that aren't familiar with Florida Blue, I mean, it's part of the Blue Cross Blue Shield family. Florida Blue specifically.
Yeah.
Can you talk about its mission, its operations in Florida?
Yeah. So a couple of things in that. So Florida Blue, we're an independent company of the Blue Cross Blue Shield Association. So we operate here in Florida. Our employees, thousands of employees, live here in the state of Florida, but we're our own company. We have our own CEO, our own executive team, our own board. We make decisions based on what are the needs of Floridians. What are the needs of the different communities. We serve all 67 counties across Florida. So Florida Blue is an independent licensee of the Blue Cross Blue Shield Association. 1 in 3 Americans today are covered by Blue Cross Blue Shield plan, across the country.
I am. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for being a customer. And so the association really is a federation of Blue Cross Blue Shield companies. If you think about the structure of Blue Crosses across the country, like Florida Blue, most are independent to the state that they operate in. There's been some consolidation of different Blue plans over the years.
So like across states or at a corporate level?
An example would be Healthcare Services Corp, HCSC. That's Blue Cross of Illinois, Blue Cross of Texas, Oklahoma, Montana, maybe one other.
Yeah, it's kind of a lot of geography.
But Blues and generally by nature we're not for profit, and so there's 37 different Blue plans at the association level. A couple of things at the association, it gives us a national network to support those individuals across the country. It also helps from a policy positioning and framework. How do we take what are the needs here in Florida and in Tennessee and in Texas and really put that into a uniform policy framework. And then there's some operational components so that, if my family's traveling to Tennessee, my son needs to go see a pediatrician while we're away, the Tennessee provider is not worried about where do I file these claims? What does it look like? File it to your local Blue plan, and then on the back end, there's some operations to pass and pay and adjudicate claims. So it kind of keeps it simple as healthcare can be for the providers. But yeah, Florida Blue, we're independent. We're now operating in the state of Florida for over 81 years. providing health and welfare strategies to individuals, to families, to businesses across the state of Florida.
No, that's a long time. I never thought about the interstate. I mean, that's never really come up as a family or travels. And the one time, ironically, I mean, just recently for a family vacation, went to Panama.
Okay.
And we did buy an added insurance, rider, thinking, we'll never use it. I don't know, it was like $100 or something like that. We're like, done, just in case.
Just in case.
We're in a different country.
Right.
The very last day, I've never had any type of food allergy.
Okay.
I had a club sandwich at the hotel next to the airport.
Okay.
And the side of my neck just like swelled up. I had this rash all over, and we were trying to find a pharmacy open to just get some Benadryl and couldn't find that. And my wife is like, maybe we need to go to a doctor. And I'm like, we don't need to go to a doctor, but almost needed it.
Yeah. Well, Blue Cross will have you covered. Internationally, we have arrangements all across the world. So
excellent.
You would have been covered, and you just give me a call. We would take care of it.
I'm not calling you for that, but I appreciate that. So, I mean, you just mentioned it is a non-for-profit model.
Yeah.
So how does the model differentiate from kind of the bigger giants of the healthcare world, the for-profit world?
Yeah. It's a big differentiator. We as a not-for-profit organization, we're not governed by, our shareholders. We really make decisions based on what are the needs of this community or the communities across the state. Our shareholders are our members. So we make conscious decisions about what are the right things to do, what are the ways to engage very deeply, locally, what are the products and services and ecosystems of partnerships that we need to make. So it is a huge differentiator of our organization, of Florida Blue. I probably should say, too, just structurally, Florida Blue's the insurance division operating here in the state for over 81 years. The parent company to Florida Blue is an organization called Guidewell. Okay. Guidewell is a mutual insurance holding company. And underneath Guidewell, there's a number of distinct business units. So Florida Blue, the insurance regulated division, which most Floridians would associate with. But we also have we're in the direct delivery of care. We have emergency medicine practices. We have advanced primary care clinics under a Guidewell Health division of our business. Why that's important, it allows us to operate and serve customers, nationally, including in Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Isles. Guidewell was formulated about a little over a decade ago. At the time that Guidewell was formulated, Guidewell and Florida Blue, we were serving about 6.5 million Floridians. We were doing we did at that time about $8 billion in revenue. Last year, we ended serving 38 million customers and a little over $32 billion in revenue. So we've been able to grow not only what we do here in Florida, but also to make that same impact across the country.
Okay, interesting. Insurance is an interesting industry because I do feel I'm a banker, I'm a capitalist.
Yep.
But there are certain industries and professions, like a firefighter, it doesn't need to be a for-profit entity. Insurance, obviously very different, but I almost put that service in a similar category where, I question whether it needs to be a for-profit model.
Yeah.
What's the pros and cons of being a nonprofit or a for-profit model?
Yeah, many pros for us being in the nonprofit status. One, it allows us to invest very locally and deeply, into our members and into our community. So, the mission at Florida Blue.
And so like a Humana or something very different doesn't do that.
Very different. Very different. Their motives are different. We feel we have a different purpose as a nonprofit. The money that we collect, we need to reinvest that back into.
We're very much in the community. I'm not seeing Humana or United Health invest in charitable nonprofit causes, and maybe I'm just not seeing it because I'm not in that industry. But I feel like Florida Blue is everywhere and invested in everything.
Yeah, and it's rooted, Owen, in our mission, and it's to help people and communities achieve better health. And we absolutely believe that that's a very broad definition of health. It's an individual and their family's physical health needs or unmet physical health needs. It's the behavioral health needs. There's not enough that any of us can do in the mounting behavioral health crisis. Mm-hmm. It's the financial health of an individual and their family. It's the health and prosperity of a community. So Florida Blue, being a nonprofit, we're able to invest in community development and community partnerships one, it's the right thing to do, and we firmly believe that. But we build our strategies around how do we make that level of impact locally. Mm-hmm. It's why we prioritize food insecurity, behavioral health, health improvement, and health equity. And we try to make sure that we understand what are the needs of this community and what are the different ways that our organization, can make an impact against that. And that's all over the state. For me, here in West Florida, that's the entire coast, from Hernando down to Collier County. We serve in our market about 1.3 million Floridians. The needs here in Hillsborough County, we know there are many. What does that look like? And you don't have to go very far, in this area to realize that an individual's experience in health, unaffordable, inaccessible, not dignified, not empathetic, not culturally relevant. So how do we build our strategies? How do our teams and our team members then be able to participate in driving a different outcome, across the entire region and across the entire state?
Now, does that nonprofit status also limit, I guess, maybe growth potential, scale?
I'll give you a couple of data points.
Maybe.
Yeah, we are regulated as you are in financial services. It doesn't limit our growth and our potential. We have other ways under Guidewell to be able to make investments that support a broader spectrum of health. Guidewell was recently recognized as a Fortune 500 company, and I mentioned the growth of the organization going from $8 billion serving 6.5 million customers to $32 billion serving 38 million customers. So all of that growth in a 10-year period, pretty good growth scale. Incredibly proud of that, but also recognize that people are still really struggling. They're waking up seeing unaffordable cost of healthcare. They don't see where it's working for them. They're lost in how to navigate a very complex system. And so we really, I take that very deeply and personal. How do we really build strategies? How do we interconnect, different partners to be able to address the needs of that individual, that family, and the community at large?
Well, you mentioned costs, and costs are climbing exponentially. What are the biggest issues driving?
Yeah, there's several. When you look at, kind of what are the key, macro forces driving costs. Yeah. And I tell, some of our new sales team members, healthcare is incredibly complex.
Sure.
At the end of the day, though, to simplify it, we are trying to balance a dollar. A dollar at the end of the day is still a dollar. The components of that dollar inside of healthcare are tremendous. Nearly 18% of the GDP is attributed to healthcare.
That's wild.
In the United States, you look at other countries around the world, 9, 10, 11% GDP. So healthcare is incredibly complex. What are the drivers of that? There's certainly a regulatory environment that creates opportunities, both positively and maybe at the detriment of what can impact affordability of health. You see, new therapies, new R&D to bring, let's say, specialty medications to market, which has been an incredible, cost of healthcare. How do you pay for biologics and gene therapy and orphan drugs that, on a treatment could cost upwards of $250,000 to $750,000? That's the right thing to do, but as a society, how do you pay for that?
Right, and I know so the pharmaceutical companies need to get reimbursed for that risk and the investment that they're taking, and we kind of lead the world in innovation there. So I get that, but I wonder if things like the one that always sticks out of my mind is like syringes. Yeah. Syringes expire at a certain point in time, but they're metal and plastic. They never really go bad, and we just ship them to a foreign country. Yeah. How many things like that are embedded in the system that are just inefficiencies, part of that regulatory process that really just don't make any sense in that cost?
There's a lot of inefficiencies. In healthcare, while there's a lot of innovation, we have to really re-innovate, who we are, what we do. Our organization has been on this journey, really since the inception, and certainly under Pat's leadership, to be a health solutions company. We need to find what are the different ways where do those inefficiencies exist, and then what can we do to kind of alter and change that dynamic? We have
power as an insurance company to kind of dictate and say, okay, we're not going to pay for syringes. I mean, I don't know, because it's more patient driven, right? It's not.
Yeah, I mean, nobody wants to deny care. I mean, there really is. It doesn't benefit anybody to have denials of care. There needs to be appropriate checks and balances. But how do you create a system where, the patient, the provider experience is not disrupted by as a country? We have, multiple decades of managed care principles. How do you really create greater value? And I think that's an area that our organizations take a leading position in. When you look at how do you create valued arrangements with hospitals, with providers, with the pharmaceutical company, with all of the different stakeholders that are components of that dollar cost. We've been on a journey to really create value-based partnership. A couple of years ago, Pat and our board really wanted to advance how many individuals, Florida Blue members, provider is in a value-based contract. What does that mean, Owen? It means that there's not this fee-for-service dynamic where you have waste, you go in, you get checked, you go see another doctor. Even though I just had that done, well, we don't accept those records. I got to go redo everything.
Yes.
How do you create more accountability to managing the total cost of care? And we went through a very focused effort all across the state, including here in the Tampa Metroplex area. Today, we have over 2 million Florida Blue members whose provider and whose healthcare system are in a value-based incentive design model, where we're managing to lower. Let's not add costs. Let's take costs out and allow that cost to be reinvested into patient care, patient outcomes, better access points, and a more
that is amazing.
Distinguished experience.
I've had personal experience with getting a test and needing to go to a specialist, and they're like, "Okay, we're going to do another test." I'm like, "I just got that test. That's why I'm here." Yeah. Or the one, and I don't know if there's. I'm probably just whining, but being somewhat of an athlete, I've had multiple injuries. The way they always start is like, let's have an x-ray. And I'm like, nothing is broken. Yeah. I guarantee this is like ligament or muscle related. Yeah. Can we just go straight to the MRI? And it's like, we got to do the x-ray first. It's like, okay. You kind of know that's protocol, but
and
not necessary.
And I think consumer, in that example, like our expectations as consumers for, anything that we purchase, we have to why have an x-ray? We have to have that same level of consumer expectation. Well, what does this really mean? What is the course of treatment here? What is the course of action? How much does it cost? What are the different ways to engage around my health or my family's health? In healthcare, we've made progress against that, but at the end of the day, people still don't see the value. It's confusing. We've got to simplify it. We've got to create better information, better resources to help navigate those situations. It's what we expect. I'm buying a car. I'm not going to take the sales agent necessarily at his or her word. I'm going to really do my research. I'm going to shop it around. And so, back to your question, what's driving the cost of health? There's a lot of factors. We also have a society that's just built on sickness, and we've got to put much more emphasis in prevention, primary care.
Absolutely.
To kind of mitigate the long-term implications of
there's no magic pill. You gotta have a healthy
do a little bit of work.
You gotta do the work up front. What about technology? Is there technology that's revolutionizing, helping with some of that? AI comes up in every conversation, but maybe some of that's recognizing some patterns and behaviors that can be find some efficiencies. Yeah,
huge efficiencies. Think about the world of AI and all the different ways that the world is changing, and we all need to be a part of that change. And at Florida Blue, we absolutely are. There's a lot of promise in AI, and we've embedded. And this isn't a recent. We've had AI and large language models embedded in our organization for years. What's been exciting to see is now those. In healthcare, you're seeing a lot of positive outputs of that. I'll give you an example. We back to the nobody likes to have care denied. AI is not going to replace the human interactions, the critical components of the healthcare system, but it will absolutely make us much more efficient. It'll reduce waste and cost. If you think about a prior authorization, where there might be a medical policy that requires clinical notes or documentation or some course of action before the next component of the service. we've been using AI inside Guidewell Florida Blue, looking at high volume procedures, musculoskeletal, knee, hip, spine, radiology, oncology. It doesn't replace the process or the human interaction. A prior authorization, outside of that process and in the industry could take anywhere from 10 to 14 days. Leveraging the AI models that we're using, we're seeing documentation submitted, determined, and read, and determined inside 90 seconds.
That's incredible. Wow.
Incredible. Think about the waste, the back and forth, but most importantly, the person we're all here to serve, the patient, their family. Right. And so there's a lot of promise with AI. We talk a lot as a team, though. What I'm excited about, it's the kind of practical AI. It's the automated infrastructure. The better just intelligence we have around our business dynamics. And so healthcare is going to go through some continued radical transformations, and it's probably needed, given that highly unaffordable, highly inaccessible. Yeah. I'm quite optimistic. Our organization has been leveraging AI and other models for some time. And then recently, there were 50 kind of key stakeholders inside healthcare, including Guidewell Florida Blue, that made commitments to really improve the prior authorization process. And I think that's a great industry, stand to kind of come together, from the insurance side, the provider side, the policy side, to really look at what do we need to do as a country to help the people we're all here to serve. And so, we're quite excited about that, quite proud of the work we're done, and there's a tremendous amount of work to do.
I'm excited about that. I do feel that it's gotten a lot more attention, and that people are finally starting to recognize that things need to change. It's not sustainable. I mean, it's not healthy for us as a country, and the percentage of GDP we're spending upon healthcare. I mean, at some point, it's not sustainable, especially getting into things like Medicaid coverage, Medicare coverage. But I do want to pivot a little bit. Let me first acknowledge that you're a nonprofit company, and you don't feel the need to answer this question. But so last year, United Healthcare's Group CEO Brian Thompson was murdered. Yeah. What was your initial reaction when you heard that news?
I was heartbroken. I mean, it was tragic. Any loss of life is sad, and to see that was really sad. My initial thoughts were with Mr. Thompson's family. With all of his employees, anybody in the healthcare field and industry, it was sad. I mean, I was heartbroken personally. Thought about our own teams and our own staff and everything. But we are a different company, and we all experience that
very much. And I want everybody to kind of recognize that.
But it was sad. I mean, just to see a tragic loss of anybody's life is. Heartbreak wrenching, and so to see that kind of play out in the very public way that it did was disheartening.
It really kind of is a bizarre public way in which the murderer actually, I think, got funded for legal fees, and there was a lot of support. I mean, what's your take on that? I think there's, in just our society today, there's a better way to air out grievances. What came as a result of murder.
Of it.
Yes, I agree.
But a lot of the public sentiment, I think, is what you're getting to.
Right.
It's like, kind of what people were saying as a result of that. Moving.
There was like a hit list of people were putting in New York. Posters of all the CEOs of the insurers, which is just, I mean, it's wild to think that, we're in America and something like that's happening.
Yeah, and I think. As I looked at it, it really reminded me that we've got a lot of work to do. And while I disagree with how, maybe people were playing out their public comments or putting them in social channels with maybe no accountability, I understand why. It's because, they're feeling left out. They're feeling, nobody sees me or hears me. It isn't working for my family or my dynamic. And that's a responsibility that I take very, very, passionately. We've got to do a better job to make sure that the work that we're doing, the impact that we're making, does create, a value proposition, whether or not that leads to Florida Blue Insurance. But just how can we, do a better job as an organization? And so, we've got a lot of work to do. And I think, welcome anybody to, work with us, give us input. What do we need to do, from a policy side, from a product development side, from a, community development side, to be able to make it a much more system that does have greater value for the people we're serving.
Do you feel that that event and kind of set of circumstances that then resulted in insurance companies trying to address some of those issues and develop a greater sense of trust in a relationship and maybe some clarity with their clients as a result?
Yeah, you're seeing that, kind of maybe across the industry. Now, I know, some of the competitors are having a difficult time maybe explaining, some of their business practices. And you've seen that in, their stock prices and different changes in the executive leadership team. But it does, we should always be concerned about what we're doing, how we're doing it, the impact that we're making. That's what we do inside Florida Blue. I think you have seen a greater maybe galvanizing of organizations coming together, looking for, ways to advance health, make it more affordable, make it more strategic, make it the delivery much more local. But again, we got a lot of work to do. And, the people vote with their hearts. They're looking for something different. And as a country, we owe that to everybody to, provide a value of healthcare, that resonates.
Well, thank you for the work you're doing and for that perspective on things. Florida's a little unique. We're an aging country overall, but Florida perhaps is maybe a little older and aging a little quicker than a lot of parts of the country. What other issues, including that, do you think are facing Florida specifically?
Yeah, there's several. We do have, an aging workforce and an aging, just citizenship here in Florida. So how do we have, senior services? How do we have products, support and services? One that I'm very keenly looking at here in Florida, and I think we should all be a bit concerned, in the affordable care at the federal exchange. Nationally, there's about 24 million people that are covered by the ACA today. Today, of that 24 million, there's about 4.8 million Floridians that are in the ACA.
Okay.
Of the 4.8 million, a little over 4 million of those individuals today receive tax credits based on their income. So they're individuals who are less than 400% of the federal poverty level. Many of those individuals in the ACA are less than 200% of FPL and qualify for enhanced premium tax credits. Those subsidies are set to expire at the end of this year, barring something different, but what will that mean? Well, there'll be 4 million people that today have health insurance that is subsidized partially, maybe wholly, based on their income. But the healthcare needs don't go away. It shows up in different areas of our community. It shows up in our emergency departments. It puts a greater strain on our law enforcement and our first responders. It adds to the behavioral health crisis. So, Florida Blue, we're really focused on how do we, certainly help educate, but how do we create programs, products, and strategies to let people know what options are available to them. And I think as a community, no matter where you are politically, it's a community conversation. Community health, focusing on, in this case, some of our most vulnerable citizens, is a community problem, because we've got to be able to stand up and lift up that individual if we're going to have greater community prosperity, we're going to have continued growth and development in the area. And so, we're working through that. What do we do here, particularly in the ACA? Small businesses, I know the Treasury Department just put out some information that over the last year, about 3.3 million small businesses and entrepreneurs purchased their healthcare through the ACA today. Okay. So, Florida, we're a very small business friendly community. So how do you help support, the local organization or an entrepreneur, with his or her business strategy? So we've got a lot of challenges. And then environmental, in this community, we just went through 2 hurricanes. How do you respond? It doesn't, while the news cycles have moved away, we still know, and people are still struggling. We're still working on some of the basic needs that individuals have: housing, basic medical care, education. And so we've got a lot to contend with as a state. I'm really proud of, Florida and certainly West Florida, because it's been such a remarkable journey over the course of the last year to see how this community really does come together to tackle, big problems. Doesn't mean we're not without our problems. It doesn't mean we're solving everything, but this is a unique environment. And I've been very pleased to just see, community leaders like yourself and others just come together around key issues that we should all be concerned about, and then really put to action, plans and strategies. And I think if there is optimism, it's that the Tampa Bay community, the broader metro area, can really come together around key challenges in affordability, housing, education, health, and put forward plans and strategies that we can control here locally.
I agree. It is a special place, and thank you for being in the middle of all that. So
thank you.
It's a testament to you for your leadership and involvement and support. So we've mentioned it a couple times, and I think behavioral health. You mentioned the hurricanes. That's one of the things that outside of just standard, people with less means, are struggling with kind of the basics and healthcare. But even folks that have had means that are still waiting on rebuilding, just beyond that, just other life challenges, behavioral health. Like, how are you trying to impact that and support that?
Yeah, a lot. In that example, it's hard to ask somebody to be their best version of themselves at work or in their family when they've got all these other things going on.
Yeah.
Before the hurricane, one of the greatest challenges inside of behavioral health is access to clinician and clinical care. And so we've been working inside Florida Blue and Guidewell. How do you bridge greater access that at whatever point an individual volunteers that I do need help, like I'm really struggling in my day to day. I need assistance and resource. How do you kind of bridge that? That's not, okay, great, we're going to get you to see somebody in 6 months' time. No, we've got to create dynamics at that point in time to make an impact on that individual's life. We worked really hard to create rapid access to behavioral health providers. We actually put this initiative forward last fall. Of course, we didn't know we were going to experience two hurricanes. Inside of our different Florida Blue centers here across the region, we have community health specialists, we have behavioral health specialists, we have nurses. For the period of September into November, across our Florida Blue retail centers here in West Florida, we did 10,000 coaching sessions of resiliency.
Wow.
Inside of those 10,000 individuals.
What is that normally, though? Like, what did that go to get to that? Was it like 2,000 to 10,000?
It was an increase, but we were there, and these are for community members. Whether you have Florida Blue insurance or not, providing community coaching and resiliency and training. Inside of that 10,000, though, Owen, it was identified that 1,400 people needed to see a behavioral health provider, needed clinical services and support. Through that access program that we created, those individuals were able to see a behavioral health clinician, get the support and service that they need inside of really 2 business days.
That's tremendous. Yeah.
And so bridging access in behavioral health has been a key focus of our organization. The other one that I'd say personally that I'm committed to and our organization's committed to is the youth mental health. Really concerned about, if you think about somebody who's under the age of 25 today, the entirety of their life has been, filled with strife and conflict, wars, pandemic, financial crisis. And so, where's the optimism in being a young person today? 1 in 6, young men and women from the age of 8 to 18 today are struggling with anxiety, depression, substance abuse, affliction, addiction. So how do we create, programs? And really proud that Florida Blue, in partnership, and I'll call out one with the Vinnick Sports Group and the Lightning, we have a program called Strike the Stigma, where we invite students in our high school system here in Hillsborough, Pinellas, and Pasco County to come to Amalie Arena for a day of peer counseling, coaching, bonding, camaraderie. But it's not just a day. Those young men and women can volunteer to become youth mental health trained inside their school. And through partnerships that we have, we actually go into their school, train students, train faculty, train the administrators, and provide ongoing resource support throughout the course of the year. Last year, we had 350 young men and women join us for Strike the Stigma. This upcoming season, so cool. We'll have over 500.
Wow.
And my goal is over 1,000 students, and would love to, grow that even more, here in the youth mental health. So behavioral health is a key and critical area of our organization. And again, I don't think there's enough that any of us can do to address the unmet behavioral health needs of members in our community.
Agreed. And I love the kind of the stigma piece of that, especially how many people have an opportunity to get inside like Amalie Arena and then have programming like that. I mean, that in itself, you're like, okay, I don't know how I feel about this, but I'll get in the door. And then, that's part of the biggest issue is just getting them inside, hearing the message. It's okay. And, there's an opportunity to help other people too.
Yeah. And letting them know, it is okay. How you're feeling, there are outlets to be able to, like, you're not alone. Like we're here and it's student led. So you see the students, coming together. I mean, we have facilitators, but it's a really great, it's a great event and something, I'm really proud of. I know the Lightning are incredibly proud of, and we want to continue to grow that. We on Men's Health, we've got to do a better job, focusing on ourselves. Yeah. And, we just had a series of Men's Health huddles in partnership with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I was talking with our team, what are we doing to kind of elevate men's health? And it was a great session a series of sessions to really focus on that. What are the things we need to do as men, to kind of help represent that. So looking to kind of grow that over the course of the year. But, behavioral health is such a needed area. There's no good physical health without, very sound mental health. And so, they're not.
And they're both interrelated.
We can't treat. They're interrelated. We can't treat them separately. We can't. It's got to be a holistic approach to health. And so we're going to continue to work really hard at that.
Okay, so 19 years at Florida Blue. Where do you see the next 5 to 10 years leading? Florida Blue in general, but you as well.
Yeah, I'm incredibly honored to have the opportunity to be the market president here for West Florida. Particularly, given the circumstance that brought me to West Florida, you and many others knew David Pizzo incredibly well. Dave was just a tremendous colleague and leader. But even above that, Dave was a personal friend of mine, someone that mentored me. So to have the honor to be here to lead our organization, our team, here in West Florida, is tremendous. And where does that go? Look. The organization, the needs of this community are going to continue to change. And if there's any opportunity that I can and our team can to make a difference, I'm committed to that. So, we'll see what the future lies ahead. But Tampa Bay, very, very honored to be here and to have the privilege and distinction to lead our team.
If you were the insurance wizard for a day and you could wave the magic wand, what's one thing you'd change about the insurance industry?
We talked a bit about it. Policy, there's a lot. And I think we all have an obligation to advocate for, better, richer, deeper, policy components. The perception piece, I really do want to, work to kind of make sure that we have a very supportive organization that is committed to, addressing what those is. That's going to take a lot of work. And then I think in order to live that, we just got to have practical solutions. People have to see, it's not intangible, it's actually tangible to them. So I think if I was the insurance wizard for the day, would definitely advocate for, greater, business practices that are going to create a value proposition that maybe gets over the perceptions or misperceptions people have about health. Hopefully that leads to, a better policy framework and, ways to make a greater impact. Again, we don't need to spend more money in health. We have to figure out how do we take what has happened inside of healthcare today and reinvest that into the people we're all here to serve.
Good, and I love that. So thank you. Great answer. And if I had the wizard hat and wand, I'd give it to you right now.
Give me a wizard hat.
I can. We can make that happen. Amazon right now. I guess finally, Florida Blue is involved in so many things. Like our listeners that are out there that want to get more involved, maybe with Florida Blue and some of your other initiatives you're supporting. How would you recommend they do that?
Yeah, there's so many ways to get involved with our organization. The very easiest way, I would invite everybody to come in and visit any one of our Florida Blue retail centers. These are community centers. Again, you don't have to have Florida Blue insurance. We have 3 here in our market, one off of West Shore, one over in Pinellas Park, and one up in Clearwater. We're growing that down in Southwest Florida. when you come into a retail center, our very wonderful and talented team can help you with whatever questions you have about your journey of health.
What does an experience look like? I've never been in one.
Yeah.
So when you walk
I'm going to host you. I'm going to take you up here. Yeah.
Okay.
When you come in, so certainly we have sales and service agents. So healthcare is complex. You're getting, bills and EOBs. You can't. Even myself, like, what does all this mean, right? Our team can absolutely help navigate through, whatever questions you may have. But we do have, beyond sales and service, as a community center, we really want to prioritize good physical health, good mental health, community health. And so our teams, nurses, behavioral health specialists, community health workers, are really there to kind of create that experience. We also have a tremendous amount of fun. If you and I were to walk into a affordability retail center, it probably would not be uncommon that we have 70 seniors doing yoga or Tai Chi or pottery and painting classes. We really do use them as institutions to
like a community center,
community hubs, and that resonates for the markets that we serve in. We now have over 30 affordability retail centers across the state. So I would invite any of the listeners, come in, enjoy, experience affordability retail center. I'd also challenge everybody. You should ask when you visit. What's the mission of Florida Blue? And our teams not only will be able to cite the mission, but they'll talk to you about like what they're doing that day, or what they have upcoming, or what was it last week to improve and achieve better health. And I think that to me is why I love working at this company. There's a lot of things that we are involved into, maybe highlight just one or two as an example of somebody who's looking to get involved. We talked about behavioral health and the strike to stigma component. We're doing a lot in the food insecurity space. Nobody wakes up today to decide that that's the day that they're going to become food insecure or can't provide for their family. And it's all those things that lead up to that. And so, we're working with Thomas Mance and the team at Feeding Tampa Bay.
Great work.
Great work. And they're providing so much value for our community. But when you look at, not only what's happening today, but what are those needs into the future, they're growing and they're mounting, and people are really struggling. So really proud of several of the things that we're doing around food insecurity. Additionally, we're looking at doing some work with the American Heart Association. I was surprised to learn that in all of our major parks across the city and in all of our middle schools, it's not a requirement to have an AED device on site. Many do. In our high schools, it is, but there's not a requirement that there's a public access AED device.
Interesting.
So Florida Blue, we have started a campaign that we're putting public access AED device in some of our most, not only traffic parks, but some of our most remote and rural parks where EMS, it actually takes them longer. If an individual has an out-of-hospital cardiac event, the chance of survival is 1 in 10. We're a society, we have the technology, we have an army of individuals who have been trained or could be trained in hands-only CPR and how to appropriately use an AED device. Let's not let not having one be accessible be the reason that we couldn't save somebody's life. And so
I love that. That one hits close to home because we just had a colleague's husband who passed away. So that's appreciate
tough.
The work that you're doing there.
Thank you. Yeah.
So I'm definitely going to take you up on your tour of the retail center. We'll get our yoga pants and
go do some. That'd be great. We'll do some yoga. Then we'll do some potting.
Yeah. Anything else you want the listeners to know about Phil?
No, I really appreciate the opportunity. Thanks for having me. Here to be able to share a bit more about our organization. The work that we're doing. Incredibly proud of everything here in West Florida, and incredibly excited about the future and journey ahead.
Well, let me applaud you for, just your career in healthcare, but everything that you've done and Florida Blue has done in the community. It's a great asset. It's a great partnership, and appreciate it very much. If people want to get involved, would you recommend them they go to the website, to the retail centers?
Yeah,
anywhere?
You can come to our retail centers. You can follow us on our website. You can follow us on all of the social channels, Instagram, LinkedIn, et cetera, Facebook. So we'd love to engage with our members in the community and reach out to us.
Well, Phil, thanks for coming on Money Market.
Thank you. Thanks, Owen, for having me.
You can find Money Market and the Bank of Tampa online and on LinkedIn, X, Facebook, and Instagram. And make sure before you leave, you hit that like, follow, or subscribe button, and we'll be sure to see you around in the Money Market.